spend it on people who don't have money to get important resources that are necessary for all. So they're not analogous, because General Motors is, if it has a lot of employees, has to provide a lot of healthcare. They're taxed on a burden of them doing well as a business, and then they get an increased burden on that business. What we do with people is look for people with lots of money, take some of it, and give it to those that need it. I'm totally cool with that. Robin Hood is a hero of mine. If we have to rob the rich to give to the poor, I'm down with that. Secondly, he said, we freeload off you. Now, this to an extent is true. But it's not true because you're American and you're the private market. You always freeloader off a market leader. And whatever happens to all the healthcare systems in the world, if you turned into a good system tomorrow and had a socialized system, there would still be a market leader, because private companies like pharmaceutical companies still want to make money, and we still pay them for them making drugs. Now, just because we might pay them less money because it's not massively extortionate, no thanks, it doesn't mean they're going to give up and start selling mangoes. Just because they're not earning 5 million or 5 billion this year, they're only earning 2 billion. I'd still get out of bed for that. I think they will too.
Andrew, this point was nonsense in Texas and it's nonsense here. If our healthcare companies don't have $10 billion the American taxpayers having them, unless they're currently wasting that money on coke and whores, they have $10 billion less to invest in drugs, less to invest in CAT scan machines, less healthcare is provided.
I don't care. Right. What he's saying is there'll be a marginal difference in the speed of research and development. And he's right, they'll have a bit less money to invest, but they'll still have a lot of money to invest. They'll still come up with new and innovative ideas. But the thing is, healthcare isn't about what the Americans tell you it's about. It's not about the best CAT scan machine in the world. It's not about the best cancer drug in the world, because they are marginal increases on the normal and average. It's about providing basic, common-sense healthcare to as many people as possible. If you have slightly fewer innovative new drugs that can add an extra second of life onto someone, I don't care if more people are being fixed up in hospitals and getting back out to work. But then his third bit, the bit that really annoyed me, was that the only such thing that could possibly be waste would be coke and whores, and that doesn't exist, so therefore there's no waste. You spend more on secretaries in this country than Czech Republic do on their entire healthcare system per capita. Like, that counts as waste to me, because secretaries, while important, also exist in the Czech Republic and do their job in the Czech Republic. They spend that money on healing people. Also, we don't have to advertise. You spend twice as much per capita, so $4,000 per head, the American system costs. And for that privilege, 15% of you don't have any healthcare at all, and a large proportion of you are underinsured. And the other half that do are being ripped off for the privilege. I think that's a failing system, because that waste on, I don't need Sally Field to tell me which drugs I should have. In Britain, my trained, educated, qualified doctor who has met me and is not being paid to give me a certain drug recommends one to me, and in fact prescribes it to me because I will get better, not because they have won a Best Supporting Actress Oscar and have been paid to tell me it would make me better. I think that's a better system. But his last idea was this incentivizes doctors because you're stuffing their mouths with gold because they get to treat people with tennis elbow, and that if you didn't have that, they'd all work in the City of London. Well, City of London, I live in it. It's not a great place to work at the moment. They tend to throw themselves from high buildings because the economy treated them rather badly. So that's probably not true. But also, doctors, lots of people want to be doctors in our country because of the position they hold in society, because they still earn lots of money. It's better than working at McDonald's by a long shot. And it's a respected position where you heal people. And that's what the system is about. It's not about money. It's not about greed. It's about helping the most amount of people that you can. That's what the British system is based upon. That's why Dan never challenged the idea of basing a health system based on need rather than wealth. And that's why I'm still very proud to defend it.
You may have guessed this is a complicated topic which may take more than 9 minutes to deal with in full detail, so I'll attempt to hurry. Right, Andrew had some points. It's only rich people who we tax, right? Nobody who could use the money for anything except Rolls-Royces and yachts will actually be taxed in order to fund socialised medicine. Nonsense, right? Socialised medicine costs hundreds of billions. It is the biggest, the NHS is the biggest single employer other than the US Army in the world. This is a tremendous burden to place on society, and as a result, you have to tax everybody who can afford to be taxed. Not in the sense that they're not spending the money on yachts, but in the sense that they're not spending the money on their children's education, on family holidays, on books for their children. Right? Andrew is providing a great thing, right? But you have to take a huge amount from society. It's not zero cost in order to do this. And what he's saying is that Andrew can make that decision on behalf of you. You don't get to decide whether you spend a couple $200 a month on your own health care or on somebody else's health care. The state decides for you that that's always the best choice for you, to fund somebody else's health care at the expense of your own. You could be a healthy 25-year-old non-smoker who knows there is a very small risk that you will need health care next year. But Andrew's state decides that you don't get to spend that $200 on your education, on your children, on whatever else you want to do. Andrew takes that money from you. When he says right to healthcare, think duty to fund the healthcare of people you've never met and people who might make bad choices, and I'll talk about that in a second. Then he says, oh, the pharmaceutical example is just silly. It's only a marginal change in the research pace. Tell that to someone who's got AIDS. Tell that to somebody who's dying of cancer right now. This is a massive amount of money that Americans spend on healthcare. Goes into directing research to cure diseases that people will die from. It would be a huge loss for the world and for America if that incentive were to go away, because what happens in a country like mine is the national healthcare system has huge bargaining power versus the pharmaceutical companies. So they just make the pharmaceutical companies an offer they can't refuse for drugs. So whatever, a penny a tablet or $1 a tablet. But that's what pharmaceutical companies accept that because they're making their profits in the States on their drugs, and because every extra pill only costs a cent to make, and the R&D cost has been paid for by Americans, the incentive is there to sell to British people, right? But take America away, and every other healthcare system has to pay the full costs of drug development. And that, I don't think, is sustainable. Oh, the other thing is this Czech Republic example. It was Singapore last week. But, Czech Republic is quite a cheap country to operate in. I don't think that's disputable. I also don't think they offer anything like the same level of healthcare that America does. I think the two arguments are disanalogous in that sense. Sorry?
Czech Republic do have longer life expectancy than America, don't they?
Yeah, but they don't sell burgers constructed of 6 hamburgers, top and tailed with fried chicken with cheese on top. Okay. There are problems in the American system, right? There are wastes in the American system. Andrew's right. You could fix some of these things by having, it's over. By having things like jury-allocated damages got rid of, by having things like removing the interstate bar on trade in medicine, by doing things like having a public option to directly compete with states' providers. That there is waste in the American system in terms of the advertising costs that he's talking about doesn't mean the American system is inherently, in terms of healthcare, more wasteful than a bureaucratic system. In a bureaucratic system, a bureaucrat, somebody in Washington, has to decide where hospitals go, has to decide who gets treatment, has to decide how healthcare allocation is done, and then has to provide it. If you think a system in which all healthcare professionals are civil servants, where the government has to work out where healthcare is needed and how it can be allocated, is more efficient, inherently than that, I think you need some more convincing than what Andrew gave you. The system does have problems, but not problems that couldn't be resolved without going to a nationalised system. And with that, are you doing a summary speech now, or am I?
Yes, he is.
Oh, okay.
Could we possibly do 3 and 3 instead of 4 instead of 1?
Yeah, sure. Right, what was this discussion about? It's about what was the best way to distribute needed resources, so not iPods, but